Hello, hello, everyone. Today is February 18th. This is a enhancement subproject meeting of SIG Architecture. This is a meeting that will be recorded and available on the internet. So please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. And in general, just be awesome people. So we've got a light agenda, but I'm sure we have plenty of things to talk about. First off, hello, welcome. We're at a new meeting time. It's nice to see more folks in the house because the meeting time is now more convenient for them. So welcome to any new attendees on the call. And with that said, if you are new to this call and would like to introduce yourself, feel free.
Hello everyone, this is Naveed. This is my first call. Thanks for making this time, for checking the call time. This is a bit friendly. And I'm looking forward to work with the SIG architecture and getting to know you all. Thank you.
I'm also going to
Welcome.
say hi because I think this is my first time in this meeting. I'm Alana Hashman, Chair of SIG Instrumentation, member of SIG Node.
Welcome, welcome.
Oh, and I guess newly minted PRR team member.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations. Or sorry.
I'm very much looking forward to reviewing 20 PR or 20 caps last minute every release. It'll be great.
What are you going to do anyway?
Welcome both. And Alana, looks like you have the first topic.
Wow, that's what I get for being early on the discussion, getting things into the agenda. Yeah, so I was chatting with a few people, including John yesterday, and he encouraged me to attend today and to maybe bring up some feedback about the 121 cap cycle and like discuss process improvements. And maybe we should not do this as the first topic because I think that this could be very open-ended. I don't have like a specific like outcome in mind or anything like that. I have a bunch of things that I've noticed about this enhancement cycle and areas that could potentially be better. And so given that, it could probably easily expand to eat up all of the meeting time. So.
Okay, so let's hit Lori's first and see the delta, because I think Lori's going to hit on some of these process improvements.
I guess you want me to share my screen.
I was like, take it away, Lori.
All right. Oh, I can't. This happens, I think, every meeting. I'm like, oh no, I don't have sharing ability. And then.
Fixed. Try again.
Oh, yeah. All right. So this is part of a long-term effort to make Kubernetes better. Process-wise, alignment-wise, responsiveness-wise, among the different SIG leadership, and just how the SIGs are running and how they're working together. So I've gotten some feedback on this cheat sheet. I've started putting it into a pull request as well. But it's basically a guide for how to run major aspects of your SIG process. So starting with a ways of working agreement, jumping down to meetings and giving some tips there, triage and triaging tools, which are important for this group because if we jump down to KEPs, if SIGs are triaging KEPs and preparing their backlogs in advance at the beginning of the cycle, it makes everything a lot smoother going forward through the rest of the cycle. Creating roadmaps, which is also helpful for KEP management because then you plan. Planning is always a good thing. I'm a biased party. I'm a program manager. I would say that, but it does seem to work out. So the final topic is managing communications, delegating and driving transparency. So basically, this is a number of uses and user personas. One persona is obviously the SIG leader. So how could they run their SIG more effectively? an offshoot of that is how can they delegate process to other contributors? This is an area that I'd like to see expand because I think it will make a lot of people's lives better, including their lives as SIG leaders, but also the enhancements subproject, because ideally you can use your existing meetings to run through your KEP backlog for a cycle, get insights and broader insight from the group around what KEPs are being pushed in the cycle, have folks be responsible for those KEPs, speak on behalf of those KEPs when they interact with the release team. You know, there's all sorts of positives that can happen if SIGs make some minor process adjustments in the area toward delegation. So that would be a hope, a success outcome for this. Another potential user of this would be a product manager who wants to get involved in Kubernetes, but just doesn't know how. I see this project as being like the Ellis Island of product managers. If they want to get on board with Kubernetes, they could come here. They bring the expertise around driving user stories, roadmaps, prioritization techniques, and ideally they could go and embed in SIGs and help run some of this process. If we take this document and turn it into an onboarding program of sorts for product managers, and it could also be project managers who want to get involved in open source, TPMs, students who want to develop leadership skills, running processes, leadership skill. A lot of folks struggle with that. And so it can help a student jump ahead a few levels if they get that experience now. So there's all sorts of ways that this could be used, and it can be used for the benefit of enhancements in the process itself. So I just wanted to bring it here because I know some folks have provided some feedback on it from this group. If you haven't, you should, because your feedback makes this more concrete and makes it more real, because you've all seen situations in your years with a project that this document may treat too idealistically. So bring your hard-won experience to make this quite crisp and concrete, and that will make it more viable for other SIG leads who have been in the same position as you. You know, we have a little bit of maybe a skepticism in some areas that process can be improved. I think that's changing as many of you have adopted improvements in your SIGs and have shown that process can get better if you stick to it. But there's still more to go. There's still some more guiding folks along. So ideally, this will help that process. And then I think if we pair it with a number of other mechanisms in the project from the steering committee, for example, like what are the roles and responsibilities of a SIG lead? Because I think that when you have ambiguous roles, then it's just really, it becomes unclear who does what, and then also who is responsible for what. So I think that if we paired this with more visibility for the roles and responsibilities, like chair, lead, et cetera, then that could actually be quite powerful in helping along our efforts, and then also this part of the process. Because if a SIG chair doesn't realize that they actually have to be responsive to the release team, I mean, I think they do, but if they don't realize the impacts of that, then they may just not respond. They may not, things ensue. I think being clear about the duties that you take on when you take those leadership roles will help. And if you look at the doc, there's a number of examples of different mechanisms. So I see a lot of Alana's work in here. So like triaging, some great work being done in SIG Node, setting up project boards, also running good KEP management in a huge SIG. So that's a great story to show that it can be done.
Thank you.
It can.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on how difficult it is right now. So
yeah, I mean, I wonder, like, I wonder if those challenges are for this moment as we transition into the next stage of process improvement, or if they will be long-standing. They
I think
will live
some of them
past.
are, and some of them might not be. Like some of the stuff are definitely like node specific, sort of we're in this point in time, but some of them, like I don't see them as like transitional.
I think it'd be good to separate those because those will stick with us. And if we get ahead of those issues, then we'll be all the better for it.
So should we start to dive in on Alana stuff?
Yeah, unless there's any questions. But I don't think there are.
Well, thank you for putting all of this work together. I know that you've been kind of pounding the pavement across all of these SIGs for months, essentially.
On and off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just mainly being around, observing things, and reaching out too. But
Kirsten, did you have a comment?
I was going to say something, but I honestly forgot what I was about to say. So
It definitely feels like that days.
you know, like when you unmute yourself and you're like, "This is going to be good," and then you're like, "I am going to just mute myself back and pretend I didn't do that."
Well, sorry.
I'm gonna paste a bunch of stuff in the doc because these are my things. And then if you want, I can jump into discussion whenever we're ready. Are we ready? His silence consents.
We're ready. Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
I am. So I just sort of threw a bunch of notes in here for just things that I've gone through this KEP cycle, and like as a SIG chair and as somebody who's been tracking something like 20 plus KEPs for this cycle to try to make sure that everything is accounted for. There's a bunch of different areas that like potentially there could be improvements. And I sort of like put a bunch of bullets and I try to order them somewhat in terms of priority so we don't get too caught down in the weeds. But the first two main things that are a little concerning to me is that the KEP process has gotten very heavyweight to the point where like, and we don't really differentiate between different kinds of things. So for example, I worked on a KEP this cycle to basically fix a bug with like how probes work with termination grace period seconds, because there's a coupling that doesn't make any sense. In order for me to get that bug fix fully graduated, it will take me 3 full release cycles. And so as a result of that kind of thing, because in this case, there's a compatible API change, because of that kind of requirement within the process right now, there are like lots of organizations that end up using alpha features in production. And I don't think that's what the alpha beta graduation was initially targeted for. But now that that's kind of how the cycle works within the KEP process, that sort of thing is being incentivized. And I don't know what we've thought about this, but
if I can jump in for a second, Ilana, I question that a little bit, because I think before KEPs were, I think people have been using alpha features in production for a long time. Now, I agree that I do agree with the general principle you're saying, is that if we make the process too hard, people will not use it. They'll circumvent it. And I think that's a valid point. I'm not sure that that the existing use of alpha in prod is, anyway, maybe that's a pedantic point.
yeah, well, so like to use this sort of as like a case study. So we have like a bug, and it requires the best way probably to fix it, the most explicit way, the least breaking way, all of that jazz, requires a compatible API change. That's going to take a year to hit graduation, give or take, like maybe 9 months, certainly like a full cycle of releases as we're currently doing them. And like that had to go through, I had to spend, you know, like a couple of full days working on this KEP in order to even like propose the thing. And like that, you know, doing the design doc and the feature proposal and all that, like that's fine. But I'm gonna have to do that for 2 more release cycles. And I can't even have this thing turned on by default for like, you know, another release cycle to fix this bug. And to compare that to something like, for example, you know, swap support on nodes, which totally makes sense to me. It would take like a year to kind of phase in versus, oh, oops, we have a bug in how like liveness probe timeouts work. The fact that they're sort of in the same like cycle and require the same amount of paperwork and the same amount of oversight. Absolutely, I have gotten feedback from a number of people like, well, let's avoid doing a CAP because it's going to be so hard to do a CAP. Let's just do the bug fix thing. Let's just do the hacky thing to avoid the API change. Like, I don't think that's what we want. That's not incentivizing the right kinds of fixes.
So, I mean, this doesn't feel like KEPs though. This is that you hit the API review process and you hit the, like, that's a big part of it, right? If it was, if you were delivering an enhancement that had nothing to do with an API, it would be a different, you know, it would be a different time frame.
Well, maybe, because a lot of the stuff we're asking to always put behind an alpha and a beta feature flag now, like regardless of what it is. So in this case, there happens to be compatible API change, and we're using, you know, alpha, beta, et cetera, feature flags. But like, I could have fixed this in another hacky way that maybe could have gone slightly faster, but we'd still require the feature flags. And so I don't know that that would actually make it go any faster. So there's like, it's both, they could be separate, but also there is pretty tight coupling right now with how the process works.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is like, what's the threshold for when a CAP is needed? And right now you're saying that the feedback you got from the API reviewer team, I guess, was if there's an API change, it needs a CAP. And then the question is like, and what's the, I think there are 2 questions that in this example. One is, what's the threshold? And 2 is, does everything have to go through a full alpha beta stable cycle? And actually, 3rd question is, does everything need a feature gate? Or does needing a feature gate imply that it has to go through all those stages, or can you short circuit that? So I think those are like, is there any accounting for level of risk in the decision making about how we manage the change, right? Like it's change management, right? And like, do we say this is a low risk thing, we don't need to go? Because we've had that. I know we've had the same thing. I remember a year or 2 ago we had the same thing in SIG network, although maybe this is a counterexample to yours, because we said, oh, we just want to add this one field, and it's just you know, it's just one field, and let's just, maybe we can go straight from alpha to stable. But then actually we went into alpha and then we decided to kill the whole thing. So like, I guess that doesn't necessarily, that's like, we were talking about skipping the beta phase. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I agree. There may be some measure of things that there's a fast track or an alternate process that we can use that's not as demanding.
Yeah, I mean, it's very ad hoc right now, and there's a lot of things that, you know, like I've definitely seen CAPs go straight to graduated kind of thing, where it was just like, oh, well, we needed a design proposal and we needed to make sure everybody was aware of this sort of breaking change before we made it happen, but like we don't need to phase it in across multiple releases. But there's definitely a lot of cases that are not being caught by that. And when we say like the bar generally is alpha beta graduated and you have to use a feature flag and you have to phase it into this way, the bar to like those contributions and what one may have to, like, you know, override essentially or use judgment to avoid, that initial investment right up front, that's already like enough for, I think, a lot of people to say, I don't want to do a CAP.
But that sounds like a good argument for saying that perhaps what you want to do isn't suitable for a CAP, but for some other to be determined process. Because I also think, like, when I've heard you talk about it and you're like, it's a bug fix with an API change, it's like, well, at the heart of a CAP, like, that's not like the purpose of a CAP. Like, really? Like, that's not like the thing that the CAP is intended for. And maybe this indicates that there needs to be some kind of process that has review, obviously, that is more suited for those types of changes. Of course, I don't know who owns that process, because you just can't like make a like it. There obviously needs to be review, but perhaps like the KEP format, filling out the entire KEP might not be the best thing. You might need like the PRR, or you might need some other bits of information. But I think that that's like, I think we don't want to force everything into a format that it's not suited for, but at the same time, like
Yeah, we don't have another format.
Yeah,
So,
so-
like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Can I phrase this for a second? Can I ask how many people know what a feature is versus an enhancement?
Well, you said it in one of the, you or at least you rendered your opinion, or I don't know if it was a definitional thing, or in one of the comments recently. I tend to think of a feature as adding new functionality.
For the sake of this process, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what you said, but I don't remember how you defined it. You said it was a single release set of changes in a single release associated with an enhancement.
Right. It's a unit of work that can be executed within the scope of a single release. An enhancement can couple multiple features, right? An enhancement may span multiple releases, but a feature, it sounds like what we're talking about here is a feature that could have just been done without a KEP, or associated to some long-term improvement that was attached to a KEP.
So I'm going to suggest, oh. No, you weren't done yet. Go ahead.
But the suggestion is it sounds like maybe that knowledge is not visible enough and people are not tapping into that. And maybe we need to make it clearer. Lori.
I'm going to suggest that maybe we think about, well, we have the glossary, right? This is part of our documentation needs.
Yeah.
We might want to spend some time trying to handle some of these old lingering questions around. Like I was just looking for the GitHub issue, like, should I make a KEP for a policy change? Probably not, right? Because of this discussion, we don't want to add weight to the process. We don't need to. So perhaps we should try to
say what people should do. That's the thing. It's like, we shouldn't just say, oh, don't do the KEP. We should say, don't do the KEP, do.
Well, that was going to be what I was going to say next. Like,
Okay, cool.
I think we need to create a hierarchy of enhancements like needs or development things. So that could be API related, bug related, policy related, feature related, and enhancements related. Get specific about what these things are, and then carve out the processes that will make sense in terms of rigor and weight. And I think we have probably most of the nuts and bolts in place, and I think it's just a matter of refining those to come up with some clear guidance around what people should do and from a process standpoint for these different needs.
So I think this tags into the discussion about scopes, which I just linked in the chat. Not everything needs a KEP, or not everything is well shaped for the release type process KEP, right? Some things are in tree, some things are out of tree, right? Some things like release team doesn't need to review, enhancement sub-project owners don't really care about, right? Like, we don't need to have our paws on it, so to speak, right? And then there are policy changes that may affect the entire community, right? So I personally, when I was doing the features enhancements thing, like in the weeds, I was watching the entire enhancements repo. Like, I just turned that off, but I don't actively watch.
Yeah, I don't either. I made the same decision.
Yeah, I don't actively watch any of the PRs unless they are specifically tagged for area enhancements. No.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm trying to do the code bits of this to remove some of those requirements. I know that they suck right now for a lot of people, especially if your thing doesn't fit neatly into something that needs to be delivered for the release specifically.
I think that Node is going to run into, like, I mean, Node is just one example, but Node is going to run into this sort of thing a lot because users, like, unfortunately, one of the problems is that people have ideas of how things should work. And even if it was like a bug, like, they consider the bug a feature, and then it requires very deliberate, like, you know, changes to try to fix.
So, I mean, I think people are saying this needs discussion and documentation, and we need we need agreement among a number of people, and the process we have for that now is a KEP. And what you're suggesting is that there are classes, and maybe the scope is the right way to do it, that there are parts of the KEP that's what the original caps or design proposals, pre-caps, that's what they were, right? And then over time, we've added things to the caps to fit the standard shape thing, big thing. And maybe we need a cap light that's like really just where we document the design decisions we make, but we don't need all the other aspects. But then we need guidance and criteria for when you do each.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is an exercise I'm engaged in at the moment, and I'd be happy to lead this, but I think that you need, think of JIRAs, right? We don't use JIRAs here, but you do have types of work. And so to Stephen's point, I think the scope type is really great because that is actually pulling us into this discussion about what is the size of this thing? What is the impact and complexity? So I think we want to create a hierarchy of these things, policy changes affecting the whole project, enhancements, feature, bug, I'm trying to go down the list from big to small, but you want to have specific, clear, simple processes, as simple as you can get for each of those stages, to reserve the complexity for the things that require the most critical eyes, most, slowing things down, the most attention. So what I can do is we can set up some sort of table, draft this, and then we can talk about that. Just show me, I think, probably I'm aware of all the issues on this topic already. Just make sure they're on the project board, and I can do this and have it to y'all like Monday. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Awesome.
Let's get started.
I want to call out that we are over time right now.
Okay.
For anyone who, if there is an issue that does not exist, that you've checked our project board, please drop it. If you have notes about this scope type topic, please drop them on the issue that I linked. We will catch you at the next one. Thank you all for hanging out. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.